Hello and welcome to the Asian Game. Paul Williams with you here again at the FIFA Women's World Cup, where all our coverage is sponsored by our good friends at SMC. It has been a massive day for Asian football here at the tournament. A pair of 4-0 wins for Australia and Japan sealed both of their progressions through to the round of 16, both as group winners of Group B and C. An enormous day, huge victories, huge statements made. Japan with that 4-0 win over Spain, one of the favourites for the tournament. Massive win. We'll cross to our man Alex Bishop on the ground there for all the recap from that one. But we start over in Melbourne, where Australia has just finished off a resounding performance to defeat Canada 4-0, the defending Olympic champions. A real statement, given that they came into this game under pressure, third in the group. A lot of speculation they might not actually get out of the group. As it turns out, a big 4-0 win, as I said, a brace to Hayley Raso, Mary Fowler with the third, and Steph Catley putting away a penalty late on to make it 4-0 to Australia. A statement win that takes them through to the round of 16, likely now to finish to play Denmark or China in that match. And we cross now outside the Melbourne Rectangular Stadium. Former Australian international Elissia Carnavas joins us once again. Elissia, thanks very much for joining us. We can see the joyous celebration going on behind you. A lot of pressure on the team coming into this game. A 4-0 win, though. What were we worried about in the end?
Do you know what? I don't know. I was weirdly calm today. I suspected that we'd draw, and I was okay with that. But 4-0, I think that place back there, you can see it, raptures, absolute raptures. It was amazing. Really, really good.
Well, you almost predicted this in a way, because when we spoke after the loss to Nigeria a couple of days ago, we spoke about the Canada game a little bit, and you did say they hadn't been that impressive so far in this tournament. That proved to be correct, because they barely fired a shot tonight.
I thought they'd been flat all tournament, to be fair. Like, not their Olympic gold medal best, right? We just hadn't seen them shine. They'd lost a few players as well. How about this noise? And they just couldn't get it together tonight as well. I thought they were pretty flat. Even with all the possession in the first half as well, I thought they were a bit almost wasteful in attack. Christine Sinclair just wasn't able to fire. A few of them just poor touches on the ball, and we just capitalised. We were really aggressive. I think it was our turn to shine after the Nigerian game. I thought we were very, very efficient.
You mentioned shining and Canada being a little bit flat. Certainly one thing that wasn't flat was the crowd there. We could kind of pick up a little bit of the atmosphere behind you there as the crowd starts to fill out of the Melbourne Rectangular Stadium. What was it like? What was it like inside the stadium? Because it came across on TV incredibly well. It looked like an electric atmosphere. So tell us, what was it like to be in there tonight?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. There's a lot happening. Yeah, it is, and I think in this stadium, Melbourne Rectangular Stadium, as we now know it for this tournament, 30,000, as much as it's literally half of some of the other venues that they've been in. It's like a little cauldron. Like the sound in the place was unreal. So a special night.
It seems almost strange to think now, but after that 4-0 win, but you cast your mind back only a matter of hours. There's a lot of pressure on Gustafsson and the team coming into this game after that loss to Nigeria. They faced a lot of criticism, both personally with Gustafsson and the team as well. There was worry that we wouldn't get out of this group. Have they answered a lot of critics tonight with that performance?
Yeah, and you could see it on the sidelines. Gustafsson, it was like the weight just lifted off that coaching panel. He's been under the pump, right? There's been a lot of questions asked about subs, players who are on the bench, essentially. Kaya Simon can't be used, essentially, at the moment. Sam Kerr will leave that out of the picture. We've heard a lot about that this week. And I think they didn't even need her, so shrug. Everything is well in Camp Matildas.
I want to talk about the front three as well tonight, because Ford, Fowler, Raso, I mean, they were absolutely dynamite. No Sam Kerr, no worries it was in the end for Australia, because those front three, two of them got on, I was going to say three of them got on the score sheet, but Ford didn't. But two of them got on the score sheet. Ford had an assist to her name. I mean, they were absolute dynamite.
I thought Fowler was exceptional. I thought she created and held a lot of the attacking play. A lot of it came through her. And she was buzzing. And when Mary Fowler's on, she's on. Her work rate off the ball tonight was exceptional. It allowed Caitlin Ford a lot more freedom as well. She was able to advance a lot better, which she loves. She loves to be attacking on the ball and threatening the whole time. And I thought Rasso, need we say more, 2 goals, brilliant.
A huge statement performance, as we've said a couple of times now. So, for you, watching on inside the stadium, what stood out for you the most? What was the most impressive aspect of that performance as you were watching it?
Just the urgency. I think we went up a notch tonight. I think that we had to go up a notch. The urgency around the park and the ability to back each other up was a lot better, a lot more comprehensive than what we saw with Nigeria, and a lot more connected. Midfield to attack was way more connected, and I felt the injection of Fowler was really good in that setting as well.
And just to finish off, probably crucially now, that they get a whole week off before they have to play their next game. They've got probably, as I said, China or Denmark next Monday in Sydney, I think it is. Having finished top of the group, they'll avoid England most likely. They'll take a lot of confidence after this performance tonight. They'll take a massive amount of confidence into that game, and the week off will do them the world of good.
Yeah, Sydney, the round of 16, Monday week. Is it Monday week? I think. Let me check that. I think there's a huge amount of confidence that they will take out of this performance. They've beaten Denmark recently 3-0. China, they know what to expect going through the Asian qualification system. I think tails are wagging. We're very happy. They should be very happy, and they should be very confident to see this through to the quarterfinals.
Well, look at that. We got through almost an entire conversation about the Matildas with barely mentioning Sam Kerr's name, because I'm sure we'll hear it enough over the next week. Elissia, thanks very much for joining us. Enjoy those celebrations as they continue on in Melbourne. Really appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Gus.
Well, moving on now, and Australia wasn't the only team with an impressive 4-0 win tonight. As I said off the top, Japan, huge 4-0 win against Spain in Wellington that confirmed them as top of Group C. Huge statement performance again, like the Matildas. There was a lot of speculation about Japan coming into this tournament, but they've been one of the most impressive teams so far. Some people even speculating right now that they could be the team to beat so far in this tournament, given how impressive they have been. Our man on the ground, as he has been throughout the entire tournament, is Alex Bishop. He was in Wellington again today, and after full time, when he got out of the wind, he filed this report.
Welcome back to the Asian game. This is the match recap for Japan 4, Spain 0. I never thought I'd be saying those words, but Japan have done it. An excellently executed game plan, truth be told, by Japan gaffer Futoshi Ikeda. And very, very different against opposite to what they normally do. Very much against type. Normally from Japan we see them play a very possession-based game, but tonight this was not how it played out. He went with pretty much the polar opposite, which is a back five. We wouldn't call it a back three as we sometimes do. It was a back five, a very low block, a deeply set defensive line, and all of the chances seemed to go on the counter. That seemed to be the plan from the off. Heading into the game, I think a lot of people would look at it, and for Japan and Spain as well, very similar. It would be a chance for rotation, with both sides having progression to the round of 16 confirmed. They'd likely want to rest a lot of the players. We're seeing a lot of significant injuries across this tournament. Many teams, many players are kind of coming down with this, and you'd think that it would be a chance to rest some of the more prominent, the key players, and give a chance to some of the fringe players to come in and get some game time as well. And to an extent that was kind of the case. There was two notable omissions from Japan. Up front we had Mina Tanaka stepped out and Riko Ueki came in as the 9, and then Manchester City's Yui Hasegawa, she was not in the starting 11. She normally starts there in centre midfield, but Honoka Hayashi stepped in her place. From the off, it was pretty clear how Japan were going to play. They were going to sit deep. Again, it would be a back five. They would invite the pressure. They would invite Spain onto them. Japan would then move to win the ball back by surrounding surrounding the Spanish players, cutting the passing lines in Japan's defensive third, of course, before launching a rapid counter-attack, which would usually take 2 or 3 passes maximum for it to be realised. This was pretty much how most of the goals were scored, exploiting the space that Spain left in behind. First goal came from Hinata Miyazawa, who was released, got onto a ball from Jun Endo, sprinting down on goal and firing past Misa, the Spanish keeper, to make it 1-0. Second one was from Rico Ueki, along similar lines, this time the assist coming from Miyazawa, and then Miyazawa again for the third. And then in the second half, it was much more of the same. Japan came out with this very similar game plan, and the fact that the flow of the game didn't really change much across 90 minutes. It was all Spain knocking on the door, or we couldn't even say knocking on the door. It was Spain trying to find a way through the Japan back line, but getting nowhere, and then Japan looking quite clinical and quite threatening on the counter. They have the technical quality to really punish teams if that happens, right? So, and that's what happened. And then the final goal came from the substitute Mina Tanaka from a throw, and I think it was Miyabi Moriya of Ainak Kobe. She was the substitute right wing back, threw it to Mina Tanaka, who found herself in acres of space, advanced on the Spanish penalty area, and then with a great finish, it must be said, she made it 4-0 to Japan, putting the game beyond doubt. So I've said it before, it was a game plan that worked to perfection. It's a game plan we haven't really seen before from Japan, this playing on the counter, low block kind of thing. It really shows that there is versatility in this team. It shows that Japan can control the game without controlling the ball, and you really have to think that they can go deep in this tournament. They'll have a lot of answers for a lot of different opponents. The only thing we can really say at this moment to detract from it slightly is that Japan have not come up against a competent defensive structure yet. That is often kryptonite to Japan, and we do often see them struggle when it is Japan, when it's the Nadeshiko who are locked out of the penalty area, locked out of any kind of chances, and it goes 0-0 into extra time, this kind of thing. It's a young side, let's not forget, so if the knockout stages do go past the 90-minute mark and heaven forbid into penalties, how will they react? That remains to be seen. So they head into the round of 16 on an absolute high after beating Spain 4-0, right? I think Spain are many people's picks to actually go on and win the whole thing, or at least they were until tonight, of course. So they'll be absolutely brimming with confidence after that. It remains to be seen how Japan will approach the game against Norway. Will it be more of this cautious, defensive, counter-attacking approach, or will it be the usual reverter type possession-based football that they really cherish for most of the time? I think it might be more towards that myself. I think we'll see a few of the players come in. I think we'll see Mina Tanaka start again. I think the youngster, 19-year-old Aoba Fujino, she will come back in and start again. And of course, the midfield maestro, Yui Hasegawa, she will come back in. And I think she will start that game as well. And we will see the very best of this side. They have to be feeling good about that game. Norway will bring their own challenges as well. They have just trumped the Philippines last night in quite an impressive victory. So they obviously have goals and obviously have threat about them themselves, particularly on set pieces. Although Futoshi Ikeda, he did say in his post-match press conference that was one thing that they had been working on, set pieces, so maybe they will have that nullified as well. We will have to see. Either way, I'll be back with you for that game with a pre- and post-match recap of all the goings-on. So stay tuned, and goodbye for now.
And a huge thanks to Alex for that over in Wellington. It has been, as I said, a huge day for Asian football. Japan 4-0 over Spain, Australia 4-0 over Canada, both booking their place through to the round of 16. So we all now look ahead to the huge clash here tomorrow night, China versus England, to see if China can make it 3 Asian teams through to the round of 16. It's a little bit quiet here on North Terrace in Adelaide on a Monday night, but it certainly won't be the case at Hindmarsh Stadium tomorrow. It will be jam-packed full of English and Chinese fans. That will be an occasion that a lot of people have been looking forward to, and I certainly cannot wait for that one. Before we finish up today, though, on the other side of the world, away from the Women's World Cup, an inspiring 18-year-old from Singapore, Danelle Tan, is living out her dream, securing a huge move to Borussia Dortmund, and I had the great pleasure of catching up with her recently to have a chat about that move and how she's inspiring the next generation of Singaporean footballers. Well, Danelle, thanks very much for joining us here on the Asian Game. It's an absolute pleasure having you on the show with us today. You're over there in Germany after securing that move to Borussia Dortmund. Congratulations on that. Can you just tell us a little bit about the move, how it came about, and how you're settling into life in Germany so far?
Yeah, I think I've settled in very well. I've had I've had 2 weeks of good training with the team, getting to know the players, brushing up on my German, which has been a bit of a struggle because my first language is English, and so to transfer into sort of a world that only speaks German, it was pretty tough at first. But I think I'm getting the hang of it. I'm understanding what's happening in training a bit more, and so I think I've settled into a very nice routine.
What words of German have you picked up so far?
So I know how to count to 10. So that's really helpful. Like when the coaches say like 7v7 or 3 touches, at least I know what's happening. And then left and right, links and recs. I think I can I can pick up on those as well. Yeah.
Tell us more about the move, because it's a massive move, massive opportunity for you going to Borussia Dortmund, one of the biggest clubs in world football. So tell us, how excited were you when the opportunity came about and it became a reality that it was going to happen? How excited were you?
Yeah, I was. So I was obviously very excited. You mentioned Dortmund is such a huge club, so much history behind it as well. And so when I had the opportunity of going to Dortmund to watch a Champions League game in February, and so that was against Chelsea, and just to feel the atmosphere, and so I was able to see the yellow wall live, and it's the stuff of legends, right? You see it all over Instagram, on YouTube, and you see it all over the internet, but to see it live, to really see all these fans jumping up and down, singing for their club the entire game, it was really magical. And so that was something that really tipped the balance for me when I was making my decision to come here. And so yeah, I was obviously very excited, and I'm happy to get cracking now that I'm here, and just work hard.
You mentioned the yellow wall. There it is. It's the stuff of legend in football, particularly in Germany and across Europe. And we've seen massive crowds in women's football recently. A lot of it in Germany too. I know Bayern Munich have got some massive crowds. So if we think about the prospect of potentially playing in front of that one day, if Dortmund were to take a game there and get a massive crowd, I mean, how much does the prospect of that motivate and excite you, that might be a possibility to actually play in front of it one day?
Oh, it definitely does. I mean, young kids, we grow up dreaming of these kind of things, right? Playing with a full sold out stadium, people, chanting and singing for your club and supporting you. It's the stuff you grew up dreaming of, right? And so for it to actually be possible, especially in the women's game now, I think it's something that is so special, and it's really representative of the growth of the women's game. And so it's a really nice thing to see.
You mentioned there growing up dreaming of these opportunities. I mean, when you're a young girl, I mean, you're still only young, you're only 18 years of age, but when you were even younger than you are now, a young girl, 6, 7, 8-year-old in Singapore, could you ever dream that this might become a reality, to go to Europe and play for a club like Borussia Dortmund?
No, I would say, I mean, it's, I guess when I started playing, it was, I mean, football was purely recreational, and it was just for fun. I didn't even, I wouldn't even say I didn't even dream of becoming a professional footballer, because it simply didn't seem like a viable career path then. So when I was growing up, I didn't see any females playing on TV. I didn't even know becoming a professional female footballer was a thing, really. And so to dream of something like that would have been impossible. But it's really nice to see now that we're sort on at the cusp of like exponential growth of the women's game. You see the Women's World Cup, the Women's Euros, and then the top 3 most watched games in European football are all women's games. And it's great to see the growth of the women's game, that now young kids can really dream of becoming a professional footballer. Whereas when I was 6, 7 years old, I never thought of it as a dream. It was more when I was growing up and exploring opportunities. I was like, oh, this is actually possible. Yeah. So I know I didn't dream of, and I don't think I ever would have thought it possible then.
So how does it make you feel then, knowing that you're a role model for the next generations, for the 6-year-olds that are in Singapore at the moment? How does it make you feel knowing that you're a role model for that next generation of female footballers coming through?
Yeah, I think it's a huge honor for me. So I'm the women's football ambassador in Singapore as well, and so it's a huge honor at a young age to be able to be a role model for all these young girls. And it's, trailblazing a path for them as well, to show them that it is possible. And it's not just, your Megan Rapinoe, Sam Kerrs from around the world. That there is, well, hopefully I'm showing that there is, people like them in Singapore that are doing it, and that it is possible for girls like them. And so, yeah, it's a huge honor for me, and it's a huge responsibility as well. But I think, yeah, it brings me great pride to be able to do it.
Tell us, how challenging is the situation for women's football in Singapore at the moment? And we see Singapore struggle in football, in men's football, and traditionally that's always more well financed and resourced than it is for women's football. We know the challenges that there are in Singapore. There's a lot of external pressures, the pressure to do good academically, which sometimes comes to the detriment of participating in sport. There's so many external factors. How challenging is the situation and the landscape for female footballers and women's football in Singapore at the moment?
Well, I mean, like you said, it's a very small country, and so the talent pool is small, and so the competition is not as high. And so for me, when I was thinking about becoming a professional footballer, I knew that the question of moving overseas and challenging myself was not so much a question of if, it was more a question of when. And so I would say, right now Singapore is not at the stage that there's no professional leagues for women. And so if you really want to pursue a path in football, you have to move overseas. And so that's I would say one of the biggest challenges, because it's a huge sacrifice, right? Moving away from family, from friends, and then living alone. It's a huge sacrifice. And so that I would say that's one of the biggest challenges.
We've spoken a lot so far about your move to Dortmund, and understandably so, but you actually spent time in the UK, in England recently as well. So tell us about that experience.
It was a really good experience for me. Huge learning curve. I was playing at London Bees, which is in the third tier of women's football in England, and so it was a lot more physical. The game was a lot more physical than I was used to in Singapore, and so that was something that I really had to improve and work on when I was there. But I met some great friends. I learned a lot, and so it was, yeah, I look back on those times only with a huge smile on my face.
I just want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, that the sacrifice of having to leave home to go to Europe to chase your dream. How difficult has that been for you? Because I mentioned before, you're only 18 years of age, so the sacrifice to go to Europe, I assume on your own, but to go to Europe at such a young age. I was looking at your Instagram before. You seem incredibly close to your family. So how challenging has it been for you to have to leave all of that behind, to go to England first, now to Germany, to chase that dream?
Yeah, so I moved to the UK at the start of 2022, so when I was still 17. And like you said, I'm a very homebody in the sense. I spend a lot of time at home with my family. I'm very close to my family. And so it was really tough, and especially with the time differences. When I came back from school in the UK, a lot of my family would be sleeping because it would be like 12 a.m. there. And so, the first few months I really struggled. But at least I think with the internet, with WhatsApp, it's a lot easier to still keep in touch with a lot of my friends and family. And so I'd still call my parents every day, every morning before going to school. So I think it's a lot easier now, but it was still a challenge initially.
Let's finish now by talking about the Women's World Cup that's going on here in Australia and New Zealand at the moment. It's been a remarkable success, particularly, in terms of the crowds. We look at the crowd at the Colombia-Germany game the other night, 40,000 in Sydney for Colombia, Germany, and capturing all the passion that you would expect it to see back in South America or wherever else in the world. It's remarkable stuff. You look at what the Philippines had been able to achieve as well with their victory, and they got 34,000 to their clash against Norway to finish their campaign. Just seeing a fellow Southeast Asian side like the Philippines and what they were able to achieve, does that inspire and motivate you for your own career and your own opportunities ahead?
Oh, it definitely does. So I've played against the likes of Philippines just recently last year as well. And so not only does it motivate me, it also shows the level that you need to get to. and like Philippines being able to compete against nations around the world, it shows like the level that you need to get to. And so to be able to compete with them regionally, it's that's what footballers do, right? You have to keep pushing to see the level you need to get to. And so when I moved overseas, for example, that was something that was on my mind, that I have to get to the level of these girls my age around the world to see what the level was like, and then for Philippines to go out there and do so well in the World Cup, that's like the next standard, right? And so when I play against them, that's the standard I'm aiming for and pushing towards. And so it's really nice to see them competing and doing well, because obviously I'm Asian myself, and so it's also really nice to see Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries as well, doing well in the World Cup.
So who are you cheering for at this World Cup? Is it the Asian teams that you just mentioned there?
Yeah, I think I'll put some of my money on Japan as well. I think they have a really good chance. And obviously they're from Asia as well, so yeah, I think I'd support Japan. And I like the way they play as well. It's not so physical because they're quite small, but they play very nice technical football, and it's just a joy to watch, right? So I think I'd be supporting Japan.
Is that how you would describe yourself as a footballer? That's the kind of football that you like, and the kind of footballer that you would want to be?
Yeah, I think technically that's definitely one of my strengths, and because I've never really been like the biggest player on the team, and so physicality wasn't like my strong suits. And so it would be watching these technical players and trying to see what I can take from their game, because I knew that against some of the Europeans and the bigger girls, that there was no way I could compete physically.
And just finally, we've spoken about the Women's World Cup and the superstars that are here playing at the moment. Were there any players in particular when you were younger that you looked up to and you idolised and tried to mould your game on?
Yeah, it's funny. So I mean, like I mentioned, like when I was growing up, there was no women's football on TV, or I wouldn't be able to watch them. But I think as as the women's game has grown, that coverage has increased as well. And so one of my favorite players was Viviana Miedema. So unfortunately, she tore her ACL and she's not featuring in the World Cup this year. But she's a very lethal striker, and so she's somebody that I've tried to pick a few things off her game to try and implement in mine, and someone that I really enjoy watching.
And a huge thanks to Danelle and Borussia Dortmund for their cooperation in organising that interview. A beautifully spoken, articulate, inspiring footballer, and we'll be certainly tracking her progress here at the Asian Game over the next couple of years. But that is where we will leave things for tonight, down here on North Terrace in Adelaide. It's a little bit quiet tonight, but it certainly won't be the case tomorrow at Hindmarsh Stadium as China take on England. As I said, we'll be there with Michael Church for full coverage of that game as we find out whether China can make it 3 Asian teams through to the round of 16. But that's where we will leave things for tonight. Once again, a big shout out to our sponsors, SMC, for making all of our coverage here possible. But until I speak with you tomorrow, it's bye for now.